species to cohabitate with. They cause significant harm to the natural environment, to communities, and to Antigua and Barbuda's economy.
Join the team by learning how to locate and identify invasive alien species, reporting them, and helping in eradicating them by downloading the IS1 app. Visit our website at www.environment.gov.ag or the Antigua and Barbuda Department of Environment Facebook page to learn all about IAS in Antigua and Barbuda.
This project is a part of the IAS National Species Strategy and Action Plan 2020 to 2030.
State Insurance! As our company State Insurance turns 48 on January 17th, we are happy to celebrate a more than 4 decades of existence with you, the people of Antigua and Barbuda. Happy 48th anniversary, State Insurance! Safe and secure, this one will never leave you unsure. The best solutions you can ask for. Life insurance, motor or more like medical or property. Oh, how I love you so. State Insurance better for sure. Oh, how I love you so. State Insurance better for sure.
It's now 7:51 in Antigua and Barbuda. This is your wake-up call presented by Twin Island Media on 94.1 FM. Volunteers interested in taking action to prevent littering and dumping in their communities and to help change the culture of littering in Antigua and Barbuda are being given the opportunity to become Litter Prevention Wardens. Under the initiative spearheaded by the non-profit organization Integrated Health Outreach Incorporated, IHO, in partnership with the National Solid Waste Management Authority, a cadre of up to 30 willing residents will be trained and then appointed as lawful litter prevention wardens on a volunteer basis under the guidance of NSWMA. Currently, 29 candidates have begun a litter warden training this month. The ultimate aim is to have more people appointed and working as litter wardens, but on a volunteer basis. The group is mostly female, like many things in Antigua and Barbuda these days, and around the world perhaps, and 7 males. Joining us now is a familiar voice, Kieron Murdoch, Communications and Administrative Specialist of the IHO. Good morning, Kieron. Sounds strange saying it. Welcome to Wake Up Call.
Hey, good morning, Darren. How are you doing? I'm happy to be back.
Someone actually suggested to me, they miss you at times like this when we're having these kinds of conversations as part of the host. I won't call the name, but we're having Dr. George Brathwaite and Petra and Carlin, and your input in questioning and quizzing and interjecting your strongly held views is missed.
Well, all the better for my blood pressure.
Anyway, just to give a brief background, Integrated Health Outreach Incorporated, IHO, is an incorporated non-profit organization in Antigua and Barbuda that works to improve ecological, community, and social emotional well-being. Their projects cover a diverse range of subjects such as conservation, pollution, youth, women, gender, and so much more. Well, we could start, Kieron. How are things going in your new realm? We can start with that, and then we can dig into the littering part.
Integrated Health Outreach has been around for a little bit, a number of years now. And as you would have just pointed out there in your introduction, the organization is focused on holistic well-being. So you would notice that we cover projects within a range of areas. And in some regards, persons may not immediately see these different areas as being related. You spoke about working with young people, you spoke about ecology, you spoke about social, emotional well-being, gender justice, climate change. Sometimes we don't see these things as related, but the idea behind the organization, or the idea behind the work of the organization, or the area of work that the organization has chosen, is that we look about holistic well-being. And that is to say that you have to try to improve health in every aspect. All right, so you're looking at the health of the environment, which is why we focus on ecology, environment, and issues to do with climate change. You're looking at the health of persons and their relationships with one another, which is why we look at vulnerable populations often. We look at young people, we look at women, we talk about gender justice, about sexual violence and gender-based violence. And we also look about, as I said, social and emotional well-being. So we look at environment, social and emotional well-being, community, a range of different things. And at present, we've been pleased to be able to work with the National Solid Waste on a particular project where the objective has been to increase the number of litter wardens that we have in Antigua and Barbuda as a means of attempting to improve our environmental health, working within a framework that already exists, because we do have legislation that has already been passed in terms of litter wardens, but adding a new element to it, which is to encourage persons to have come forward as volunteers. And we went through that process, would have gotten that process up and running October of 2024. We would have really gone through a recruitment process, a screening process, and by November, we would have started actual training. So there's a cohort of persons, as you rightly mentioned, mostly female, who meet twice weekly at the Multipurpose Cultural Center with their facilitator, and they go through training sessions in terms of what it is to be a litter warden, understanding the Litter Control and Prevention Act, understanding what powers they would have under that act, going through scenarios in terms of, issuing things like tickets and other things, anything provided for by the act, having to prepare any evidence, any case files, having to be in a court, because that's one thing we did make clear to persons that, they had to pursue somebody for an issue that they had laid before them, that they would have to appear in court and justify whatever charge or issue they would have put against them. So all of this is information and training that they have been consistently going through. We had a little break for Christmas, as of course everybody is entitled to. But we have been back out since the start of January, and I think that things are going pretty well. We would have started off with a cohort of just around, I think it was 29 persons, and our hope is that we will have a considerable number of persons who will complete the training. It was our anticipation that we would have persons who would drop off for various reasons. Life keeps lifing, as they say. So it's all well and good to aspire to want to be a part of something, but sometimes the circumstances just are not, what it would have been best if they were. For instance, we have had candidates who, for different reasons. I remember speaking to one gentleman. I think he had a death in the family. Different things you could imagine that sometimes will prevent persons from always being able to be there, and perhaps put them in a position where they say, something, perhaps this is not something that I can actually manage, because having to come out twice a week is a sacrifice. And that is why we actually really want to commend the persons who even would have started that training, all of them, in the sense that they have been volunteering up until this point. They've been volunteering their time, they've been volunteering their efforts, and ultimately their aim is to volunteer themselves in service to the nation.
All right, let me ask you real quick. How are you planning on measuring, and when I say you, I mean IHO and of course solid waste, how are you planning to measure the success of this initiative in terms of its impact in reducing litter and promoting environmental responsibility, and most importantly, community engagement, because you need the support of the community?
Mm-hmm. Well, one thing that we do intend to do in terms of, I'll just start off on that community engagement point. One thing that we do intend to do is to have that sort of communication, that level of engagement, and we use mediums like these in terms of encouraging. Once we have those litter wardens and they've gone through that training process, and we have persons who have passed their final exam, and we have persons who have according to satisfying the official requirements and through working with solid waste, are actually officially appointed as such. We will continue to engage through the media, through our social media, in terms of reminding the public that we do have these persons out there in society, and that, of course, they ought to be respected, and that they are a part of the community, and that their work is all part of making our environment healthier. So that is one way in which we intend to engage with the community. But in terms of measuring the success, I have to tell you from the get-go that the challenge of littering in Antigua and Barbuda, I think, is something that we all speak about. It's a very frustrating thing. It's part of a culture that we have in Antigua and Barbuda. And one of the challenges that is experienced is that there aren't that many litter wardens now to begin with. So I do, if I'm not incorrect, believe that there are roughly about 4 litter wardens in Antigua and Barbuda. I think that's probably accurate. So for us to add any significant cohort to that number, I think in and of itself is a success. If you have 4, even if you manage to get to 8 or 10 or 12 or 15 or 16, I think is significant. Success, I think, will be measured in the extent to which the individuals who have volunteered for this position, if they're appointed, are able to effectively execute their duties. We anticipate that there will be challenges along the way, but those are things which we are willing to meet, and those are things which we are happy that the National Solid Waste Management Authority as well is committed to meet, and that both organizations, of course, are committed to working together, from the government agency perspective and also us from the non-profit perspective. But as you said, the measuring success, I think even having that addition of persons is a success in and of itself, and we will measure success by the extent to which our wardens are able to function. When I say all wardens, I'm speaking as a citizen here, because there'll be wardens of Antigua and Barbuda. All wardens will be effective, able to execute their duties effectively. And while we are totally cognizant of the fact that in any initiative you can expect some hurdles, we are prepared to continue to work together with our partners in terms of trying to ensure the success of this initiative.
All right. Let me ask you, have you received any feedback from members of the public regarding this initiative, or is it early days yet?
Well, I would say it's early days in the sense of the fact that they haven't yet finished training or been appointed. We've gotten feedback in terms of, persons' reaction to the initiative. I mean, it's a mixed reaction, if we're to be totally honest. I think that there was a lot of positive reaction when we would have put the call out in terms of persons saying, yes, we do need to do something. We do need to take some approach, because obviously the challenge of littering and illegal dumping is extremely significant. And when we would have had an orientation with the candidates who were coming forward to be volunteers, their own stories in terms of what they would see every day in terms of littering and dumping. I mean, there was so much resonance. There was so much of the people in the room having to realize that, we see the same things every day. There was one candidate who said that there's an area not far from her community, which is almost an illegal burial site, except that nothing is ever buried, which is to say that the dumping of dead animals, dead dogs, dead pets, and dead things like that occurs there frequently. And that, of course, is a crime, to just dump the carcass or something at the roadside and then go to work. Go about your day.
Right.
The challenge in Antigua and Barbuda is quite broad, and I think that we have the right cohort of persons, the right cadre of persons who have come together. And ultimately, depending on how this initiative goes, it will give a sense of the value of perhaps doing something like it in the future. But as to the feedback, we got some positive feedback. There were some persons who expressed some skepticism, as you would imagine. There were persons who thought to themselves, well, is this going to be a reinvention of the wheel? In the sense that we already have litter wardens. Not many people understood the fact that we really didn't have more than the fingers you have on your hand. Which is why I say that in terms of measuring success, even adding to those numbers even a little bit is in and of itself, I would think, a success. But yes, so there has been positive feedback. There has been, more critical feedback, and I do think persons are waiting to see the results, because it's not necessarily the easiest of things to put yourself in a position to be an enforcer of some kind. Darren, if I were to give you official identification, not that I have the power to do so, but I'm just proposing a scenario here. If I were to give you official identification and send you, and Dave Lee's driving on the road, and Dave Lee decided she'd throw something out she window, it is.
She not gonna pull her up.
Let's say you're all parked up at the beach, and you come out, and you confront her, and next thing she cuss you upside down your head. She tell you about your mother, your father, your uncle, your brother, your sister. Being the sort of person to volunteer for a duty like that, Many persons might raise their eyebrows and say, well, are people really going to commit to this thing? But as I said, we are convinced that we have found the right cadre of volunteers, and we've been happy to work with them through training sessions. Despite any challenges that may arise, we are committed to working through those challenges and trying to ensure the success of this initiative. And we're extremely confident that ultimately it will be a success.
All right. And someone is asking the question, do they have powers of arrest, or is there any way they can charge anyone with littering?
Their powers are limited to what's in the Litter Control and Prevention Act. They don't have any special powers in and above that.
Okay.
And to my understanding, I haven't been part of the training sessions myself, as I'm not going to become a ward. When I say I haven't been part of all of them. I will attend them from time to time just to check in on the wardens and how they're going. But they have a facilitator who is, in fact, a former policeman, having a law enforcement background, who is providing the training to them and working with them on a weekly basis. But to my understanding and from what I have gleaned, litter wardens, as it exists now under law, don't have the power to arrest anybody. They wouldn't do that. If the public is interested, I would say, in discovering what powers they would have, have a look, just Google the 2019 Litter Control and Prevention Act, and you will see what powers a litter warden has.
All right. Kieron Murdoch, we have to leave the conversation there. By the way, this project goes on for how long?
This project is, we're hopeful to have them graduated by February, March. And then it'll take, I think, at least a month for them to be gazetted. And then afterwards, they are going to be between, solid waste and the needs of communities. It will be determined exactly how they'll be positioned and how they'll be placed. And we will get into an immediate phase where, of course, we will, be testing and seeing how their deployment would take effect. In terms of the project itself, the project is an ongoing project. This activity falls under an ongoing project that we have that actually looks more broadly at the NEMA, being the Northeast Marine Management Area, and I'll make this the last thing I say real quick. And based on that project, which is a more broad project that focuses on communities in the NEMA, we would have had community consultations quite some time ago now, where these are some of the ideas that we got from the community in terms of actions that could be taken from civil society to try and aid the environmental health of the community. And a part of the challenge that the community was facing was illegal dumping. In places like Fitch's Creek, in places like Crabs, in places in Piers. I mean, that wherever you have mangroves, persons tend to view wetlands as areas for them to go and dump. Yeah. And coming out of that, we had recommendations from members of the community that, something must be done in terms of improving the environmental health and to try and tackle the illegal dumping and the littering. And this is an initiative that would have come out of that. So the project itself is an ongoing project. This is but one element that is under that project. We have other elements where we have been in schools and worked with young people in terms of teaching them about environmental health and ecology. We have a variety of other elements. Some have started and some have finished, but the project itself is an ongoing project.
All right. Kieron, thank you so much for this. Hopefully we'll get some updates further as you continue with this initiative, well, IHO specifically. Thank you very much for joining us, and all the best. Continued success in this effort.
No problem. Thank you so much, and good luck to the commentators who are about to engage in what I believe is a bit of politics.
I'm tempted to ask you to stay with us.
I would, but I think I might taint my organization with all sorts of opinions, left, right, center, here, there, up, down, and we try to not mix the non-profit space with the too much political. So it would be remiss of me if I did not take my lead.
Totally understood. Very well said. Kieron, all the very best. 9 minutes after 8 o'clock in Antigua and Barbuda. Well, I think many of us want to know what a tariff is, because as far as we know, it's the consumer pays the tariff. But according to Donald Trump, China and India and every other country outside the United States are the ones who are going to be paying the tariff, such that he's going to have an external revenue service set up to handle that. 9 minutes after 8 o'clock, we'll continue with Peter Williams, Carlin Knight, and Dr. George Brathwaite on Trump 2.0 after this.
Miss Lady, this is how you file your bills?
Hey, I know where everything is.
You sound like your father. That's why I still handle the bills.
Okay, Miss Expert, how is it I see this number changing? Fuel variation charge?
This charge takes into account the changing price of fuel. And so APUA has to adjust the rate accordingly.
So electricity is not the same cost every time?
Honey, APUA has